Cornelia froze the moment the door crashed open. She had braced herself for her stepmother's shrill voice, for another insult hurled across the cramped cottage. Instead, a figure filled the doorway, tall, soaked to the bone, eyes blazing like a storm breaking over the cliffs. "You," the man snarled, breath harsh. "You kept me waiting." Cornelia's hand slipped from the doorknob. I beg your pardon." The stranger stepped inside, boots dripping on the floorboards. Rain ran down his black hair, his jaw tense with fury. He looked every inch a man carved from thunder. "Do not play innocent," he growled. "You know why I'm here." Her heart hammered. "Sir, I believe you've mistaken." "Mistaken?" He scoffed, sweeping the room with a scathing look. "I traveled through a storm for a bride who didn't bother to show up. And then I find she is hiding in a cottage pretending not to hear her own name." Bride. The word sliced through her. Cornelia felt the world tilt. Bride? Whose bride? His jaw clenched. Mine. She stumbled back a step, hitting the edge of the table. "I am not your, whatever this is. I don't even know you." For the first time, the man blinked. Really looked at her. The fury faltered, confusion settling in behind his eyes. "State your name," he demanded. "Cornelia Fairchild." He went utterly still. "Fairchild," he repeated slowly. "Cornelia. Not Arabella?" Her breath caught. "Oh no. Arabella, her younger sister. The beauty. The chosen one." The reason Cornelia had been shoved into obscurity for years. His curse was sharp and low. "I've been led to the wrong damn woman." His presence filled the little room like too much storm in too small a space. Cornelia pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders, painfully aware of her worn dress, her unpolished appearance. If this man was who she suspected, titled, powerful, dangerous, then nothing about this moment was survivable. She swallowed. "Who are you?" He hesitated, then straightened with the quiet force of a man accustomed to commanding worlds. "Sixtus Severini," he said. "Duke of Ravenscroft." Her stomach plummeted. The Ravenscroft Duke, the one whispered about in drawing rooms, the one noble families feared crossing. And she was standing here alone with him. In a cottage. With the door still open. Oh God. Cornelia stepped back, voice trembling. "Your Grace, truly, you must understand." But footsteps approached outside. Voices. Too close. Sixtus's eyes flicked toward the sound. He moved with startling speed, closing the door behind him and stepping deeper into the cottage. "They cannot find me here with you," he said quietly. She stared at him. "Who?" "The entire village, apparently," he muttered. "Someone saw me ride toward the Fairchild house and decided to follow." Cornelia pressed a hand to her chest. "Why would that matter?" He shot her a look so sharp it pinned her in place. "Because I am an unmarried duke," he said, "and you are an unmarried woman. If anyone sees us alone in this room, the assumption will be instant." Her pulse skipped. "No," she whispered. "They'll assume Arabella." "They will assume," he cut in, "that I am here for whoever opens this door. And that was you." A soft roar of voices grew outside. Someone called the Duke's name. Cornelia's knees weakened. This could ruin her. After years of being treated as invisible, unworthy, unwanted, the idea of suddenly being thrown into scandal stole her breath. Sixtus exhaled harshly, a decision tightening his face. "If they come in," he said, "your reputation will shatter. So will mine. There is only one explanation that can hold." "What explanation?" Cornelia whispered. His eyes locked onto hers, dark, unyielding, terrifyingly certain. "That you," he said, "are my intended bride." Her breath stopped. Someone banged on the door. Sixtus stepped closer, lowering his voice, the storm outside nothing compared to the storm in his eyes. "Cornelia Fairchild," he said, "for both our sakes, play the part." The door handle rattled. and her world changed forever. Cornelia's name tore through the village like a weapon. The Duke spent the night with Cornelia Fairchild. The words slammed into her before the sun had even risen, carried by frantic footsteps pounding past her cottage. She froze halfway through packing the tiny satchel she prayed would be enough to disappear with. She didn't even get to breathe before fists hammered on the door. Louder, harder, merciless. "Open this door at once." Lady Fairfax's voice shrieked from outside. "You wicked, scheming girl." Cornelia's stomach dropped. Her stepmother. Here. Already. Before she could even reach for the latch, the Duke stepped out of the shadows behind her, freshly changed from clothes he must have borrowed from a villager, somehow looking even more formidable in simple black. His presence filled the room like a storm still searching for something to destroy. "Let me handle her," he murmured. Cornelia shook her head, panic stabbing her ribs. "No, please, she'll think." "She already thinks the worst," he said quietly. "And so does everyone else." More banging. A hiss of whispered gossip outside. Rustling skirts. Gasps. Cornelia stepped back as the Duke crossed the room in long, controlled strides and opened the door himself. Lady Fairfax stumbled inside with the momentum of her own outrage, face pale with fury, shawl slipping off her shoulders. Livia hovered behind her, wide-eyed, trembling, beautiful as always, but staring at Cornelia like she was something foul dragged up from the well. "Your Grace," Lady Fairfax breathed, smoothing her dress so fast her fingers shook. "This must be a misunderstanding. Cornelia would never, she couldn't possibly." "She could," Livia whispered harshly. "She absolutely could." Cornelia swallowed the sting. Lady Fairfax plastered on a trembling smile. "Your Grace, forgive whatever confusion led you here. My youngest daughter, Livia, is the one." "I am aware," Sixtus said, his voice cutting clean through the cottage air. Lady Fairfax blinked. "Then you understand Cornelia was never meant to." "I understand," he repeated, gaze sharpening, "that she was the one I found when I arrived. The one whose door I knocked upon. The one whom half your village now believes is my intended." Livia's mouth opened in a horrified gasp. But she isn't." Cornelia stared at the floor, cheeks burning so hot she felt faint. "No," the Duke agreed softly. "She wasn't." Lady Fairfax exhaled in relief, until he continued. "But she is now." The world stopped. Livia made a strangled sound. "What?" Cornelia's knees nearly gave out. "Your Grace." He didn't look at her, but his presence pressed against her, steadying even without touch. "The storm caused confusion," he said smoothly. "I arrived early. I was directed to the wrong home. A mistake, one that cannot be undone now that word has spread." Lady Fairfax's jaw slackened. But Livia was prepared, wealthy, suitable, trained. Cornelia is a Fairchild, Sixtus replied coolly. "And that is all that is required." Cornelia wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Lady Fairfax sputtered. "This cannot be. We must correct this. We must." "What you must do," Sixtus cut in, "is ensure the scandal does not worsen." His voice dropped into a tone that brooked no argument. "By announcing that Cornelia and I are betrothed." Livia burst into tears on the spot. "She stole him. She stole my future." Cornelia's heart clenched. "I didn't, Livia, I would never." Silence. Livia sobbed. "You always take from me. Always." Lady Fairfax grabbed Livia's arm. "Compose yourself." But her gaze on Cornelia was sharper than knives. "A warning. A promise." Sixtus stepped closer to Cornelia, not touching her, simply standing in a way that made the entire room shift around him. "We will leave for Ravencourt within the hour." Cornelia's breath fractured. I have nothing to bring." Lady Fairfax's lips curled. "She owns nothing worth taking." The Duke turned, slow and deliberate, forcing Lady Fairfax to meet his stare. "That will change." Cornelia felt something warm shove against the cold in her chest, something she quickly smothered. This wasn't real. This wasn't a kindness. This was necessity. Duty. Image. Survival. "Gather what you need," the Duke said quietly to her. Cornelia nodded stiffly and walked toward her room, Livia's broken gasps trailing her like ghosts. As soon as she reached the doorway, she paused, because she felt it. The Duke's eyes on her back. Watching. Waiting. Choosing silence instead of command. It almost made her turn around. Almost. Instead, she whispered, "Why me?" He didn't answer. Not with words. But in the thick, trembling pause that followed, she heard everything he wouldn't say, not yet, not aloud. "Because fate brought me to your door. Because the world already believes it. Because I can't let you burn for my mistake. Because I don't understand what last night awakened in me, and it terrifies me." When the carriage wheels crunched over the gravel outside moments later, Cornelia flinched. A new life was calling. A dangerous one. And as she stepped out of the cottage she'd been exiled to, suddenly standing beside the most feared man in England, Cornelia realized something with a cold, sharp jolt. Whatever this was, it had only just begun. Top of form. Cornelia's reputation shattered before the carriage even reached the main road. So it's true then, she spent the night with him. The scream tore through the morning air as a group of villagers rushed toward the path, pointing, whispering, clutching each other like they'd witnessed a crime. Cornelia flinched so hard her bonnet slipped. Sixtus's jaw tightened, his gloved hand curling on his knee as though fighting the urge to strike someone. Then a stone hit the carriage window. Not hard enough to break it, but hard enough to bruise her heart. Cornelia jerked back. Sixtus leaned forward instantly, blocking her with his arm as if shielding her from gunfire. "Enough," he growled, the single word vibrating through the carriage walls. But the crowd kept shouting. She trapped him. She played the lonely victim. She planned this. She's ruining Livia Fairchild's future. Cornelia pressed her fingertips to her lips, breath shaking. "They think I did this on purpose." "They think what they're told to think," Sixtus said coldly. "And someone wanted them to see me leave your cottage at dawn." Cornelia swallowed. Lady Fairfax. His silence was a confirmation. The carriage lurched as they broke free from the crowd, leaving the noise behind, but the words clung to Cornelia like mud. She sat rigid as the countryside rolled by, hands locked together in her lap, throat burning from the humiliation. She could still feel their stares. Their judgment. Their certainty. Finally she whispered, "I didn't ask for this." Sixtus didn't look at her, but his voice was low, controlled. "I know. No one will believe that," she said. "Not even you." His gaze snapped to her, sharp as lightning. "I do not lie when a woman's honor is in question." "But you hesitated," she breathed. The air cracked between them. He didn't deny it. Cornelia turned toward the window, blinking fast. Her breath misted the glass. Before she could speak again, the carriage slowed. She peeked out. And froze. Lady Fairfax stood in the middle of the road, blocking their path, surrounded by half the village. Livia clung to her arm, shaking, tears streaking her cheeks in delicate, perfect lines. Cornelia's stomach plummeted. "Oh no," she whispered. Sixtus stepped out of the carriage first, every inch of him cold authority. Cornelia followed, legs unsteady. Lady Fairfax placed a theatrical hand to her chest. "Your Grace. Please. I beg you reconsider this madness." Sixtus's stare could have cut marble. "There is no reconsideration." "Cornelia is unfit," Lady Fairfax snapped, mask cracking. "She is plain, unrefined, and disobedient." Cornelia flinched. Livia sobbed harder. "Why her? Why would you choose her when we—" Her voice broke, and Cornelia's heart twisted despite everything. "I didn't choose her," Sixtus said. Cornelia's chest hollowed. He continued before she could react. I chose honor. I chose what the village now believes. I chose not to let an innocent woman be shredded by scandal. Lady Fairfax seized the opening. Then announce the truth. Say she seduced you. Say she lured you in. Say she's lying. The words stabbed Cornelia, cold and deep. Sixtus stepped forward, voice a deadly quiet. Do you wish me to lie about your daughter's integrity? Lady Fairfax paled. This arrangement stands, he said. Cornelia Fairchild will be my bride. The villagers gasped. Even the horses stirred. Livia's heartbreak turned to rage. Cornelia, how could you? She hissed. You always ruin everything. Cornelia's voice cracked. I didn't. Lady Fairfax struck the ground with her cane. Enough. If this is your choice, your grace, then take her. But do not expect our blessing. We are not asking for your blessing, Sixtus said. Only your silence. Cornelia's breath stopped. His hand brushed her elbow lightly, guiding her back into the carriage. Not affection. Not possession. A silent promise, I will shield you from this. As the carriage pulled away a second time, Cornelia finally collapsed into the seat, trembling. She barely whispered, My life is over. Sixtus looked at her, not with pity, not with softness, but with something she couldn't name. Your life, he said, is about to begin. The words sank into her, both promise and warning. After a long, aching silence, he added quietly, Cornelia, I will not let them destroy you. Her throat tightened. But they already have. Then, he murmured, I will rebuild what they broke. The carriage wheels hit a rough stone, jolting her forward, right into his chest. For a heartbeat, they didn't move. His breath brushed her hair. Her fingers caught his coat. Then they pulled apart at the same time, as if the moment had been too loud, too dangerous. The rest of the ride stretched in charged silence. And just as the towering gates of Ravencourt Hall rose ahead, dark, massive, intimidating, Cornelia realized that the worst scandal of her life was only the first. Cornelia's hands trembled as she crossed the grand entrance hall of Ravencourt, her skirts whispering against the polished marble floor. Every footstep echoed like an accusation, and she felt the sharp gaze of the assembled staff and guests weighing her down. She had left her lonely cottage behind, stepping into gilded halls that seemed more like a gilded cage. Every chandelier glint reminded her she was a spectacle now, an outsider thrust into a world that thrived on appearances and whispered judgments. A servant's curt nod barely acknowledged her presence, while Lady Fairfax's eyes glimmered with the kind of malicious satisfaction that made Cornelia's chest tighten. She had imagined society as distant, indifferent, but here every glance, every murmured word, screamed scrutiny. And in the midst of it all, Livia lingered just far enough to be visible, her smile too practiced, her eyes calculating. Cornelia's heart sank at the realization. The younger sister she had once protected in small, shared moments of childhood now viewed her as a rival. From across the room, Sixtus observed silently, his posture rigid, yet there was something in the curve of his brow, the tight line of his mouth, that betrayed curiosity and tension. Cornelia felt it even before she saw it, a charge between them, invisible yet undeniable. His eyes caught hers, and for a heartbeat, the noisy hall vanished. Heat surged unbidden to her cheeks. She looked away, afraid to acknowledge the magnetic pull that defied every social law and common sense. Dinner that evening was a delicate dance of avoidance and subtle challenge. Cornelia navigated conversations with a practiced grace, offering soft nods and polite smiles. Yet every time her gaze flickered toward Sixtus, her stomach knotted, a dangerous mix of desire and fear igniting. She wanted to retreat, to shrink back into invisibility, but something stubborn inside refused. She could not allow herself to be diminished. Not here, not now. Sixtus, for his part, battled an inner war. Every moment with Cornelia revealed layers he had not anticipated, strength beneath gentleness, wit beneath humility. Yet duty clawed at him. A contract, obligations, society's unforgiving gaze. All reminded him that what he felt was forbidden, dangerous, and reckless. Still, when her hand brushed against a serving platter while she reached for her seat, the spark of proximity sent an undeniable jolt through him, and he averted his eyes with a sharp inhale. Their attraction was a secret storm building beneath the surface, ready to break at any misstep. Livia's whispered questions reached Cornelia's ears at odd moments, punctuated by subtle jabs and feigned concern. "Do you think the Duke will truly respect your courage?" she asked one evening, voice sweet but edged with venom. Cornelia's lips tightened, words unsaid, because any defense might reveal her vulnerability. She realized that her greatest challenge was not just surviving society's scrutiny, but navigating a web spun by those who had once claimed to love her. Later, in the dimly lit library, Cornelia found a rare moment of solace. The scent of old books and polished wood wrapped around her, a small comfort in a vast, alien home. Sixtus entered quietly, as if sensing her need for reprieve. The tension between them was tangible, charged yet restrained. He offered no words of consolation, only a glance, heavy with unspoken meaning. Her pulse quickened, heart clashing between fear and anticipation. Every shared silence, every accidental touch, built a connection that neither could deny. Yet Lady Fairfax's schemes were never far. Cornelia could feel the undercurrent of manipulation, the subtle tightening of social nooses. Every whispered rumor, every cold glance in the hall was calculated to remind her that she was an intruder, an obstacle, and perhaps even a pawn. The weight pressed down, but for the first time, Cornelia recognized the small, unyielding fire within herself. A resilience she had nurtured in years of exile, quiet strength sharpened by isolation. As the evening drew on, Cornelia paused at the grand staircase, her fingers tracing the carved railing. Sixtus appeared beside her, close enough that her breath caught. "You are far braver than you believe," he murmured, voice low, almost intimate. Cornelia met his gaze, seeing for a fleeting moment the guarded heart behind the formidable exterior. The connection was dangerous, thrilling, and entirely forbidden, yet it tethered them both to a shared truth. Desire was as unstoppable as it was reckless. Cornelia exhaled slowly, bracing herself. Tomorrow, the real tests would begin. The social gauntlet, Lady Fairfax's next move, Livia's sharp edge, and the storm within her own heart. But tonight, she felt the first tremors of possibility. In a house built on scrutiny and control, she had discovered a spark that could not be silenced. And somewhere, across the polished hallways and beneath the opulent chandeliers, the Duke of Ravencourt felt it too, a dangerous, undeniable pull that neither of them could ignore. Cornelia froze mid-step as the sharp words of Lady Fairfax cut through the library like a blade. "Do you really believe the contract was ever meant for you?" Lady Fairfax's tone was syrupy, but the venom beneath it was unmistakable. Cornelia's heart thumped violently in her chest, a thunderstorm echoing the one raging outside the estate windows. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to run, to escape the truth she wasn't ready to confront. But curiosity, that stubborn and dangerous thing, held her rooted. She pressed herself against the tall bookshelf, listening as Lady Fairfax continued, unaware of Cornelia's presence. "Yes, it was always Livia's future, Cornelia. But the woman's voice dipped with a sinister satisfaction. "I offered your name first, thinking he would see your faults, and the world would laugh. And yet, he chose you. Foolishly. Unbelievably." Cornelia's blood ran cold. The shock was double-edged, validation and betrayal tangled into one suffocating knot. She had feared being unwanted, invisible, unworthy, but to hear it spoken aloud, twisted into a calculated attempt at ruin, made the betrayal all the sharper. Her fists clenched at her sides, nails biting into her palms. This was no longer about social embarrassment. This was a deliberate attack on her soul, her very right to exist in this world with dignity. From the shadows, she watched as the Duke's presence loomed behind Lady Fairfax. Sixtus's expression softened, a rare vulnerability flickering across his stoic face. He stepped forward, voice calm yet firm. "Your manipulations will not dictate who I choose. Cornelia, my choice was never in doubt, despite the games others play." Cornelia's chest constricted at the sound of her name, spoken with such intent, such absolute certainty. Her breath caught, and she realized the tempest inside her was mirrored in his gaze, an intensity that disarmed her, threatened her composure, yet pulled her closer. It was a strange kind of liberation, to know she was seen, recognized, even chosen, despite the scandal, despite the schemes. Lady Fairfax's eyes narrowed, detecting the shift in power. "You," she began, but Sixtus's hand on Cornelia's elbow was gentle yet insistent. "Enough," he said. "This ends now." The authority in his voice made the room vibrate with tension, leaving Lady Fairfax momentarily disarmed, her schemes exposed in a single commanding word. Cornelia stepped forward, finally leaving the safety of the shadows. "I am not a pawn," she said, her voice trembling but steady. "I am not your amusement, nor your instrument of shame. I am Cornelia Fairchild, and I will not cower any longer." Her words carried the weight of years spent in exile, in whispered fears, in quiet suffering. They resonated with the strength that had been cultivated in solitude, in moments when no one had witnessed her resilience. Sixtus's eyes softened as he closed the distance between them, his gloved fingers brushing hers in a contact that sent a shiver through her. "You have nothing to fear from me," he murmured, low, intimate. "Nothing, Cornelia. Not now, not ever." His presence was a shield and a promise, his words a balm against the wounds inflicted by a cruel world. Cornelia allowed herself a cautious glance upward, meeting his gaze with a mixture of disbelief and awe. The storm outside rattled the windows, lightning casting fleeting, silver shadows across the room. In that flickering light, the space between them felt charged, a delicate line between propriety and surrender, fear and desire. Every heartbeat was a drumbeat of both trepidation and longing. The revelation of Lady Fairfax's true intentions had shifted everything. Cornelia's place in the household, the Duke's unwavering regard, and the very course of her destiny. What had been a precarious, uncertain engagement now carried the weight of truth, that she was chosen not out of obligation, not out of pity, but out of recognition for her courage, her integrity, and her indomitable spirit. Sixtus stepped closer, voice barely above a whisper. "No matter what society says, no matter the shadows they cast, I see you. Only you." Cornelia's throat tightened, tears pricking her eyes. The fear, the doubt, the isolation, each was rendered powerless in the presence of such certainty, such fierce acknowledgement. As the storm continued to rage beyond the glass panes, inside the library, a different kind of storm stirred, a slow-burning, unrelenting force that promised change, redemption, and a bond neither scandal nor cruelty could sever. Cornelia inhaled deeply, letting the tension of years release in one trembling exhale, realizing that the path forward, though fraught with danger and society's relentless gaze, was now illuminated by the truth and the undeniable connection between her and the man who had chosen her, against all odds. Sixtus slammed his boot against the muddy moor, the rain pelting his face as if urging him faster. Every second, without Cornelia, felt like a knife twisting deeper into his chest. He had tracked her to the very edge of the Yorkshire expanse, heart hammering with fury and desperation, and he would not let Lady Fairfax's lies dictate their fate any longer. Not now. Not ever. Cornelia sat on the worn stone bench outside her cottage, soaked through and trembling, her shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders. She stared into the storm as if it could answer the questions roiling inside her. Questions about trust, about love, about whether the world would ever let her claim her own worth. Each clap of thunder reverberated through her chest, echoing the ache of betrayal, the sting of rejection, the raw fear that the man she loved might never see her clearly. Sixtus burst through the whipping rain, cutting across the moor with a recklessness born of absolute certainty. Cornelia flinched, but the sight of him, drenched, furious, unrelenting, pulled something deep from her chest. His eyes locked on hers, blazing with an intensity that melted decades of doubt. "Cornelia." His voice cut through the storm like a blade, raw and commanding. "I will not leave you to their lies. I choose you. Always. No contract, no scandal, no fear, only you." Her lips parted, disbelief mingling with relief, but she refused to give in too quickly. "Words, Sixtus," she whispered, voice trembling. "Words can be twisted. Letters can be forged. How do I know this is real?" He stepped closer, closing the distance between them. "Because I have never doubted the truth of what I feel. Every glance, every moment since that first storm, nothing else has mattered but you. They cannot own your life. I will not allow it." His hands reached for hers, cold and wet, but grounding, anchoring her trembling form to the certainty in his gaze. Cornelia's heart raced as the wind tore through the moors, carrying whispers of past humiliation, yet she felt something steadier now, something stronger. She saw in his eyes the courage that had always been there, the honor that had drawn her to him, the vulnerability he had shared in fleeting moments they had stolen from the world. Her resolve hardened. "Then show me," she demanded, voice trembling but firm. "Show me that your choice is mine because you want it, not because you are forced." A flicker of a smile, rare and fleeting, curved his lips. "I have already chosen," he said, his voice low, almost reverent. "But I will show you. We will face them together, as equals. No more deception. No more fear." Cornelia rose, drenched, defiant, and for the first time in years, unafraid. The storm had shaped her into a woman capable of standing her ground, and now she matched him step for step. "Then let us end this farce," she said, eyes blazing. "We face them openly. Let them see what we truly are." Sixtus took her hand, gripping it with a firmness that spoke of unbreakable intent. The storm swirled around them, yet within the circle of their shared resolve, a quiet, fiery calm began to take hold. He pulled her toward the path that led back to Ravenscourt Hall, every step a declaration of love and defiance, a rebellion against the cruel judgments of society and the manipulations of Lady Fairfax. As they approached the edge of the moor, Cornelia glanced back at the darkened cottage, realizing the solitude she had once sought was no longer necessary. She did not need to hide. She did not need to shrink. With Sixtus by her side, every whispered rumor, every cruel glance, every doubt imposed by others could be faced and conquered. The first rays of dawn began to pierce through the storm clouds, painting the moor with streaks of silver and gold. The wind, though still fierce, carried a new promise, that the path before them, though fraught with danger, scandal and expectation, could also lead to love unbroken, trust reclaimed, and hearts fully united. Sixtus leaned close, voice low against the howl of the wind. "No more wrong doors, Cornelia. No more mistakes. Only us, choosing each other every day." She met his gaze, unwavering now, and for the first time, the walls around her heart crumbled entirely. "Only us," she echoed, letting the words settle between them like the calm after a relentless storm. Together, hand in hand, drenched and determined, they set their course back to Ravenscourt Hall, ready to face society, Lady Fairfax, and every obstacle with the certainty that their love would endure. In that moment, beneath the tempest and amid the moor's wild beauty, they were unstoppable. And nothing, no lie, no scandal, no fear, would ever separate them again. The grand ballroom of Ravenscourt Hall froze the moment Cornelia stepped across the threshold, her gown shimmering like liquid silver beneath the chandeliers. Every noble eye turned, whispers ricocheting off gilded walls, tension slicing through the air like a sharpened blade. Lady Fairfax's smile tightened, a predator sensing her prey was about to strike back. Cornelia's pulse raced, but she held her head high. She had walked through storms, betrayal, and exile. This was nothing compared to the years she had endured alone on the moors. Her eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on Sixtus, standing tall and commanding, every inch the duke the city feared and admired. His gaze locked with hers, unwavering, a silent vow vibrating between them louder than any declaration she could speak. Lady Fairfax swept forward, her voice smooth and venomous. "Ah, Cornelia," she purred, "I see you've decided to grace us with your presence. Tell me, does the hall feel too grand for your modest upbringing?" Her laughter dripped with malice, a calculated attempt to draw attention and humiliate. Cornelia's lips pressed into a thin line, but she did not falter. "I may be modest, Lady Fairfax," she said evenly, "but I am not invisible. And I will not be spoken of as though my worth is determined by you." The ballroom hushed, the words carried weight, and a flicker of unease passed across the faces of the assembled guests. Sixtus stepped forward, his hand brushing Cornelia's in a subtle but powerful show of solidarity. "The contract you cling to so desperately is void," he declared, his voice booming over the stunned gasps. "Cornelia Fairchild is my chosen bride. I have chosen her freely, and I will have no one dictate our union or diminish her worth." Every word struck like a hammer, shattering Lady Fairfax's carefully constructed web of lies. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some whispered in shock, others nodded in awe. Livia's face drained of color, her eyes darting to her mother in silent accusation. Lady Fairfax's composure cracked, a flicker of panic betraying her before she could recover. Cornelia felt her knees steady beneath her, her chest swelling with vindication. She had endured whispered rumors, forged letters, and years of silent suffering, but here in this gilded hall, she reclaimed her dignity. Every insult, every attempt to diminish her had failed. She met Sixtus's gaze, the bond between them stronger than ever, unbroken by scandal or fear. "Your attempts to control us end tonight," Sixtus continued, voice cold and resolute. "No deception, no manipulation, no one can interfere with the truth of my choice." He reached for Cornelia's hand in full view of the assembled society, a gesture of ownership tempered by respect and love. She intertwined her fingers with his, the simple contact speaking volumes. Lady Fairfax opened her mouth, then shut it again. There were no words strong enough to counter the truth, and the assembly watched as the mighty Duke and the once-forgotten woman stood united. The power dynamic had shifted entirely, and for the first time, Cornelia felt the full weight of her triumph, not just socially but emotionally. The music began, soft and tentative at first, then rising as a quartet struck the first notes of a waltz. Sixtus bowed to her, and Cornelia allowed herself to step into his arms. The crowd's attention faded into the background as they moved together, perfectly in step, a living testament to resilience, courage, and love defying every expectation. For the first time, the hall felt like home, not a place of judgment. The warmth between them ignited something far beyond attraction. It was trust, choice, and the undeniable proof that they were stronger together. Every step in the dance was a declaration. The wrong door had led to the right heart. As they twirled beneath the chandeliers, Sixtus whispered, "This is only the beginning, Cornelia. Every challenge, every shadow, they are behind us now." She smiled, her own heart echoing the certainty in his voice. The ballroom, the scandal, the years of exile, they were all chapters now closed. In their place, a new story began, one written together, with love as the author. And beneath the gaze of society, amidst the soft glow of crystal and candlelight, Cornelia Fairchild, once forgotten, once exiled, finally claimed her place as the Duchess of Ravencourt, fully seen, fully loved, and utterly unshakable. Cornelia stood on the balcony of Ravencourt Hall, the first light of dawn spilling over the manicured gardens, and for the first time in years, she breathed without fear. The storm of scandal, betrayal, and exile that had haunted her life was over. She turned her gaze toward the grand estate, now filled with the hum of servants preparing for a new day, and felt the weight of the past lift from her shoulders. The halls that once seemed so imposing now held laughter, warmth, and the promise of a future she had never dared imagine. Sixtus appeared beside her, his presence as steady and grounding as the morning sun. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining in the ease of shared triumph. "It's a new beginning," he said softly, his voice carrying the same quiet authority that had first captivated her in the storm. Cornelia nodded, letting the words sink into her heart. This was no longer the uncertain, frightened girl hiding in a cottage on the moors. This was Cornelia Fairchild, Duchess of Ravencourt, fully acknowledged, fully loved. Inside the hall, the household bustled with a sense of normalcy that had been impossible for so long. Cornelia passed rooms that once held only whispers of judgment and now echoed with preparation for the day ahead. Servants bowed respectfully, no longer eyes turned with suspicion or pity, but with genuine warmth. Even Livia, her younger sister, lingered in the corridors, quiet and tentative, no longer the mirror of jealousy she once had been. Cornelia felt a twinge of forgiveness toward her sister. Both had been pawns in Lady Fairfax's cruel designs. Sixtus guided her through the estate, his arm a steady support, his eyes reflecting pride and unwavering devotion. "You've changed everything," he said, voice low. "Not just for yourself, but for all of us. For this house, for your family, for me." Cornelia pressed her hand to his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath the fine fabric of his coat, and for a moment, allowed herself to imagine a lifetime of mornings like this. Quiet, tender, safe. They entered the drawing room where a small gathering of friends and allies awaited. Cornelia's steps were sure, her back straight, and her gaze confident. The room, once a stage for scrutiny and whispers, now held only warmth. Guests greeted her with respect and admiration, their smiles genuine. The shadows of Lady Fairfax's manipulations had faded, replaced by a sense of justice and recognition. Cornelia allowed herself a quiet smile. She had earned her place, not through compromise, but through resilience, courage, and unwavering integrity. Sixtus leaned close, his lips brushing her ear. "Shall we begin the day?" he murmured, his voice a mix of mischief and promise. Cornelia laughed softly, a sound she had feared lost to the years of exile, and nodded. Together, they moved through the hallways, weaving through servants and friends, a team bound by love and choice rather than duty. In the garden, Cornelia paused to touch the blooms she had planted in secret during her early days at the estate. Each flower, each carefully tended bed, was a testament to growth, patience, and endurance. Sixtus knelt beside her, taking her hand in his, and for the first time, she felt the full weight of being seen. Not just as a duchess, but as a woman whose heart had endured, who had loved and been loved in return. Evening came, and with it, a quiet peace. Cornelia and Sixtus walked along the terrace, the sun sinking behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. "Do you ever think about how it all began?" she asked, a playful tilt to her voice. Sixtus smiled, a shadow of that stormy night in his eyes. "Every day," he admitted. "The wrong door led to the right heart." He drew her close, their foreheads touching, and in that stillness, the trials, the tears, and the heartbreaks melted into memory. They had survived society's cruelty, Lady Fairfax's schemes, and their own fears, and emerged stronger together. Cornelia looked out over the gardens, inhaling the scent of blooming flowers mingled with the crisp evening air, and whispered, "I finally belong here with you, and with this life we've built." Sixtus pressed a kiss to her temple, soft, reverent, and full of promise. "And I will never let you feel otherwise," he said. As darkness fell, the lights of Ravencourt Hall glimmered like a beacon of hope. Cornelia and Sixtus stood hand in hand, hearts aligned, their pasts behind them, their future unwritten but certain in its promise. The Duchess of Ravencourt had finally stepped fully into her life, and the love she shared with the man who had seen her worth all along illuminated every shadow that once haunted her. In the quiet that followed, Cornelia allowed herself one final reflection. Who decides a woman's worth? Not society. Not a stepmother. Not even fate. I decide. And with that certainty, she and Sixtus embraced, the night holding them, the estate welcoming them, and the world outside ready for the story of the woman who had risen from exile to claim her destiny.